Now, in this case, what we'll see is really more about the service failure for one of our biggest customers. So we want to know, is our customer actually being served? If not, then where are we short and what's the issue? So drilling down into it at this point, if we're not fulfilling demand, the obvious thought is we must be short or not have the inventory available. What we'll see here is Canvas helps us to identify it may not just be the inventory is not there, but also we've got different customer service requirements about shelf life for specific products. So we'll see how we bring that into play. So we'll go ahead and drill into the use case here. And we'll start with a simple question here that we might ask on a Monday morning as a planner. Really, are we serving our customers this week? Do we have the inventory to do it? So here I'm going to scope this to one product, and we'll look across two different distribution centers. And specifically just at 1 week that we'll go through here. Okay. Let me bring this up. All right, so we'll get started with our first question here, where I want to know about our kids' chocolate rice cereal, and I'm looking specifically at two distribution centers that I want to know about, and I want to look at the fulfilled demand versus the consensus demand for this coming week. And remember here, as we ask this question, that we'll also make sure Canvas might clarify for us if we want to look into it a little bit further, if it needs to further understand anything about the question. It is a bit of a broad question. If we were to scope it a little bit further, then Canvas could more fully understand, but it wants to make sure with the different measures that we have in the system that it starts the thread correctly. So looking if we're able to fulfill all of our demand here, Canvas is immediately coming back. We see a chart at the top, but then with our analysis that no, we're not filling all of the demand here. We plan to ship 953 units across the two distribution centers, and we only fulfilled about 72% of that. Now, Albany's at a 28% shortfall, Gulf Coast, about a 30% shortfall. So neither really came close to doing a full rate. And the miss rate's almost identical at both of those. So we assume maybe we ran out of stock at this, but this is where I want to look and say, okay, well, which customers did we not meet demand for in that specific week? And we'll come back here and see that we had 10 customers in scope, and 7 of those were fully met. So we get the different customers at their different locations. I can see each of those with the demand, the fulfilled. I get that broken down into a donut chart as well if I'd like to see it. But really that entire shortfall is concentrated on 3 accounts, but they're all Big Mart accounts. So I see the split between each of those. And I can see it's just the 2 worst served accounts make up 82% of the entire shortfall. So for our single biggest, most important customers, the one that we're failing, well, it looks like we're fulfilling everything else. So why would the system not be meeting the demand there? So let's go in and ask. Now, since Big Mart's our biggest customer, we remember they do have a 150-day shelf life requirement on some of their products. So I'm wondering now, Canvas, can you help me to identify how much of that on hand actually meets this requirement? And here we see we have around 1,874 units on hand across the 2 DCs, with only about 14.6% of that meeting Big Mart's 150-day requirement. So the other 1,600 is sitting right there in the warehouse, but we can't ship it to them. So we were never actually out of stock. We were out of the stock that Big Mart could accept. So that, in fact, explains the entire service level gap that we started with. And Canvas didn't just hand us the inventory number, but it really went lot through lot, deciding against their specific eligibility rule. So this would then lead me to say, if I have different lots with different expiry dates on them, does it mean that they're all worthless? So I'm going to go in and say, what of those lots are the closest to the expiry and becoming a total loss? So we'll really drill down even further into those lots that Canvas has already identified. So here it's telling me where we have those lots in the actual units and the days of shelf life remaining. So it splits it out clearly into two different tiers here. There's a near-term group that expires on January 30th. That's only 18 days away. So there's really no realistic path to move those, and they're probably going to be a write-off. But there's a second group with 120 days of life out to May. So those are below Big Mart's threshold, but they're perfectly good for other customers that may have a lower shelf life requirement. So Canvas has spotted the root cause here, and really identified that we may have expiring inventory here, but is that something that we could use for a different customer? So it's also telling the planner where they may want to go through and make some other decisions about it. So if this is going to be the case and we have to write it off, then we would also want to know from a financial perspective, what is the value on each of these? So it's going to bring back the actual cost on those different lots. What we'll see here, the numbers is roughly $400 of the inventory that expires on January 30th with no realistic way to recover it. So that's a near certain write-off. But the other tranche there, we see about 585 days of a 120-day stock that is salvageable if we reroute it in the next 2 to 3 weeks. So put together, that's close to $1,000 at risk on this one SKU against the total on-hand value of 2,400. So Canvas is telling us that 41% of that product's inventory value is impaired, but we need to act quickly to try to move some of it to be able to save that inventory that could go to another customer. So now what I'm going to do is I'd like to discuss this with my team. So I'm going to ask Canvas to provide me a summary of all of this so that we can gather that and discuss what our next steps are going to be. Okay, so here we get a summary. It's broken down by each of the different DCs with the inventory that we have on hand. About $1,000 of that on-hand cereal can't go to Big Mart. About 400 of it expires in 18 days, and the eligible stock we do have covers less than a third of a single week's demand. Now, the plan writes itself here, and telling me act on the expiring lot today and reroute the 120-day stock to other customers this week, and fix the upstream production specs so the next inbound lot arrives with enough shelf life to actually serve Big Mart. So we started with one single question: are we serving this customer? In the 6 steps we went from there, a vague miss to a dated dollar-quantified action plan, the root cause traced back. So we didn't have to bring up any spreadsheets, evaluate it, analyze. Now I mentioned I want to share this with my team. So what I'm actually going to do is just take this summary and export it. You see, I just selected it there in Canvas. Now, and I opened the full summary that's already been brought into the PowerPoint format for me. So now I can present this to our team to help us to discuss what are these next steps and action points, and do we want to take it this way that has been proposed? Okay, so here's a little bit more of what we saw here. The numbers that we surfaced using Canvas to just ask through the questions and understanding that it's not necessarily we were out of stock, we were just out of the stock that we were able to use to meet Big Mart's requirements. So on that, Canvas also helped us to reason through the different action steps that we need to do next. Really pinpointed it for our planners and saved us the time of having to go through, dig through all of the information to find it, and then figure out what do we do with it next.
Grant, I have a couple of questions. Can I ask them now?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Yeah. In the first use case, it was a consumer electronics use case where the risk was a working capital tied up in the form of inventory. And here, the use case is around more time, right? Like it is around shelf life. And how does Canvas change the context from reasoning about when the clock is the constraint versus the dollar value? What is important and what's more important in this scenario?
Yeah, so Canvas can do the reasoning itself to help to identify not only where the issue is, but maybe what's causing the issue of the root cause of it, right? So in this second example, it helped us to drill down into the lots and figure out that you have the inventory, so we don't need to worry about an inventory issue. What we need to worry about first is what do you do with this inventory that can't be met? And then also made the proposal, try to get as much inventory as you can that will meet their meet their requirements for your largest customer there. So when you walk through the conversation, Canvas does the reasoning with you. It doesn't just pull back the information that you're asking for.
Got it. Got it. The other question I had was around how does it weigh? Canvas is flagging a lot as at risk. So you have a running demand. So it's weighing how much is on hand against how fast it is actually depleting the against the expiry date. So can you give a little bit of details around how it decides what is genuinely at risk versus what will clear on its own?
Yeah, so this is the piece where Canvas has access to everything within the system, right? So it's looking through all of the data. It's doing the reasoning around what is the customer specific shelf life requirements to help us understand it. So it's not just looking at one specific thread, but looking through the holistic view in the supply chain, right? So at that point, it can determine I need to go through and really look and pinpoint each of those lots and how that specifically matches up to where our customer requirements sit to help us to better understand the situation at hand.
So it's really going through all of the cascading calculations that it has to do from demand all the way to supply.
Exactly.
And the last question on this side, how does Canvas uh, recommend once it finds an at-risk inventory, how does it recommend what to do after that?
In the same way, it's looking at for that inventory, that location, where do we fulfill the different customers? Which customers
Okay.
do we have available? And what are the shelf life requirements on it? So if you wanted to even dig further into that and determine, do we have any other customers that we might could serve from this specific location that this does meet the requirements? Then it could help to better understand what that looks like and actually moving some of that inventory. So we already saw that it can also look at from the production side, do we have the actual lead time available to move some of this in to get it in time for our larger customer? So even the opposite direction of doing the fulfillment and looking at the customer requirements, it can do the reasoning there as well.